Welcome to AmityCast. My name is Ellis.
My name is Matthew.
And it is time to talk about Loki.
Yeah, because the first episode came out today.
Yep. Today was the premiere on Disney Plus. It was highly anticipated for a long time. I know that many Marvel fans were excited for it. Spoiler warning for the first episode.
And pretty much everything else involving Loki.
Yeah. All the other Loki stuff that's happened throughout the MCU. We watched it earlier. I will say that I adored it. I thought it was fantastic, the first episode. I think it was a really good introduction, and it got me hyped up for the rest of the series.
It was a really good pilot. It didn't really, move the story too much, but it was, really good setup and character stuff.
Right, it did a good job with that.
I really loved, the whole, scenes with, him, going over his life. It really hit, especially, the emotional stuff. Yeah.
Right, as, fans, following the MCU throughout all of its phases, it was really,
It's really cool, even have him, mention, Coulson from the first Avengers.
Right.
I never thought that would happen again.
Right, that was, actually really awesome. Even scenes, that were from, Thor the Dark World, which, whether that movie is good or bad, which it's bad, but, seeing, some of the cooler scenes from that, and, the scenes that actually bring emotional weight is really cool. Especially with the performance from, I always say his last name wrong, but Tom Hiddleston, right? Yeah, Tom Hiddleston. I always get his last name mixed up. But yeah, he's always done an incredible job. And even just in this, he had to convey a lot of emotion, a lot of range in just this one episode. I think he did a good job with that.
Yeah, and it was also, it was a much different Loki than, what he's portraying since, the last, several years. Because, he's portraying a Loki that, was just pulled out of the 2012 movie. In, a completely new environment. And he's, the main character.
Right.
And there's some really good lines in the show. They literally, have this meta thing where it's, the story isn't about you. You're just here to elevate these superheroes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I think is actually, it's, a really cool, meta commentary, like you were saying. And, I think it's really cool to see, that Loki from that time period, because the character has become beloved throughout the MCU. I would say he's definitely a fan favorite.
He was one of the first villains that people actively wanted to see more of.
Right, and he was always a good villain, but then we got a lot of development throughout the film since the original Avengers. But this is a reset back to that time period.
Yeah, when they first announced it, after Loki died, I thought it was just really dumb. To bring him back at all, because it seemed he's died multiple times. Just let it be.
Right.
But this definitely is very. They really made it feel this is actually a good story to tell.
Yeah.
And the whole TVA stuff is really being well set up, with all the time stuff they have, especially with the Infinity Stone thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that was really cool when he found the Infinity Stones, and he was even those are useless here. Then
yeah,
it's it's a good visual representation of what the character's actually dealing with and what we're gonna have to deal with in the show. I will say Owen Wilson I think was pretty impressive. I liked a lot of what he had to do. I think his performance obviously this is just the pilot episode.
Yeah, him and Loki have really good chemistry, and a lot of the reviews are from critics that have actually seen the first two episodes, and they said the second episode is a lot better than the first, which does have me excited.
That gets me really excited. I saw this episode and just all of the ideas that were being brought forward. Like I said, the performances, everything about it, the build-up, is getting me really excited for the next.
Makes me really question why they didn't start these TV shows a lot earlier.
Yeah, I don't really know what exactly the time frame was supposed to be after they had to shift everything, but I mean it's fine.
They have said that this is out of the Disney Plus shows to date, this is the one that's actually most important for movies forward. Which there's going to be a lot of alternate timeline stuff in the next Spider-Man and Doctor Strange.
Right, yeah, and I think a lot of that to set up different multiverse narratives, which has always been cool in the Marvel comics. So it's exciting to see how this could lead to setting that up. Yeah, I think it was a strong pilot. Usually pilots are always you have to be setting things up, and it's it has to be built up.
Yeah,
it has to be introductory.
Seems very focused so far.
Right, but it was a great way of doing that. I liked pretty much every scene had me invested, whether it was like, you know, being interested in like the world being created, or like what exactly they were doing, or like how they were handling the character, like how he's the god of mischief but he couldn't actually act like a god in that place is like always a cool concept, like taking powers away from something powerful.
Yeah, there's a lot of good comedic bits. What was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. I forgot. What is? Expected to be sized.
I definitely agree with that. There were multiple moments that like I just it had a lot of range to it, because it did do a good job of being funny, but I think it did a good job like with the emotional development of the character. Like it was basically like therapy going on for Loki, which is like an interesting thing to see, like for a villain. And
yeah, like literally, like we're questioning, like, you know, why do you do what you do?
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty blatant, like something like when you ask somebody like, do you like hurting people? And it's like, well, I mean,
and it's been shown up to this point that he does.
Right, yeah, because he's been portrayed as the villain, and then like late in the episode he gets to a point where he breaks down after all the Infinity Stone stuff and all that stuff, and he's like, well, no, I don't like hurting people. It's what has to be done in his mind. It's really interesting to see like that mindset, and to see like, you know, what like characters actually do when they accept, you know, things like that.
Yeah, it's just surprising how connected all this stuff still is.
Right.
Like they even like Thought didn't have lines where, you know, he's like, oh, I've dealt with enough, you know, dumb people trying to talk to me in suits of armor today, and it's just like, it's just really nice, like, connective stuff to hear.
Yeah, it's crazy to see like such strong callbacks to everything. The Avengers, like, and just everything in general. Like the Avengers was 9 years ago now, which is insane. But it's still like extremely relevant within the story.
Yeah, and then he's been portraying Loki for over 10 years now.
Right.
And it's also really interesting to think about because he originally auditioned for Thor.
Right, that's true.
Yeah. And there's theories we might see like alternate timeline stuff. Maybe see him if he had the hammer. So that would be interesting stuff to see. I'm kind of interested if even Thor will show up in the show at some point.
Right, yeah, I was wondering if they were gonna, like, because, like, we're showing all those old clips, I was wondering if they were gonna show any Chris Hemsworth, like, bits in it, because, like, they, like, weren't for a little bit.
Well,
they did after a while, but it, because they had the stuff between his mother and then with his father, and then,
Yeah, and I guess Loki's confirmed to not appear in the next Thor. But, you know, I can't really trust that until, like, the actual movie's out.
Yeah, it's like, who knows.
They could just be saying that because the show isn't finished yet or not, but...
Right. Which, I mean, I'm just super excited for the rest of it. I think that this first episode was just, I was excited for it, but it definitely overwhelmed me, like, and it definitely went above my expectations.
It kept me interested, definitely. And
for sure.
Especially if a lot of the setup, like, they literally had, like, a 3-minute sequence of, like, this animated thing, which was cool. But it was, like, It was literally just exposition. But, like, it was really well portrayed. It was
definitely a strong piece of exposition, because exposition's always tough, like, whatever you're doing, whether it's a show or a movie. And I feel like you can do it in a creative, fun way.
There's a lot of... Yeah, dark humor too.
That's true, which
I really liked.
Which I actually did enjoy. It seems like it fits the character really well.
Because I believe a Rick and Morty writer worked on this show.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. I mean, that I think like a lot of like how it's set up is a lot more reflective of Loki himself, because this is now like his own thing. It's about Loki.
It's gonna be interesting to see the arc he goes on, because this is only 6 episodes. So,
yeah.
Which kind of sucks, but hopefully they can like wrap everything up.
Yeah, I hope that
apparently there's a season 2, so.
Yeah, we'll see what happens if they actually is a second season or whatever they do with it. But I hope that these 6 episodes are rich and full of like everything that can be without being over the top. Because with how it's gone in the first episode, I think that it can be a really strong arc over the next 5. That can be really interesting. And yeah, it just gets me really excited. I think it's really cool to see this character in this type of way, because like I said, like we've gotten used to this character for so long, so it's like I wonder if like seeing this character in this like TV show, like this like series like type of set, like where it's not contained to just the movie, and it can like expand over these 6 episodes, and we can see more development from him himself. I think is going to be really cool because a character we've gotten connected to, it's going to be nice to see that development directly with the character himself.
Yeah, it just seems like they're really setting up something pretty rich with story, and the last thing I expected after Endgame was to be invested in Loki again.
Right.
Because it definitely felt like an Endgame. Having Loki leave was just a big tease, and it seems like they really set it up nicely in the show and continued it pretty naturally, and they really are like expanding on this time travel stuff really well. And there's even like cool tidbits of information where like Loki literally brings up something that the fans brought up, like why are they not going for the Avengers and Loki instead?
Right.
But they literally even say like, oh, Endgame was always supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Which was something Doctor Strange himself said.
Right, which has all been like set up. It's not like a cop out or anything. This is like it was written this way.
Yeah, and it's good to like actually see like the writers like know that like what fans want to know, and like actually like question and answer stuff in the story.
Right.
Yeah, they even have some good lines where like Loki actually knew that they were time traveling because like he could smell Tony Stark's cologne from 2 different people, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, like that is like a cool little tidbit, which is something you would definitely expect from Loki because like he's like that type of character that is he's always watching, he's always like paying attention to those details.
Yeah.
And it was at the same time taking a jab at somebody and making it a joke. Like that was a perfect epitome of what Loki is, and that was really cool.
Yeah, probably the biggest scene that stuck with me, besides like seeing Loki like react to like, his mom dying, his dad dying, and like him and Thor actually being close, was like him actually like witnessing his own death,
right?
And him just outright like denying that it would happen, and like saying no, this isn't gonna happen again. And I think at that point he's like, no, I don't want to go back to the timeline,
right?
Which there's an interesting theory that like at the end of this show, or whenever this show ends, he will actually go back to the timeline, and it turns out like the Loki from Avengers on actively knows what's going to happen, but he still goes through with it.
That could actually be cool, and I think that would like tie into like what eventually happens like with his death with Thanos would actually make more sense, I think.
Because like it seems like in Infinity War, it kind of seems like he's just actively killing himself.
Right. Yeah. Which would definitely be a cool way to be like Infinity War before Loki. It's like it looks like just a pure act of selflessness.
Yeah.
But then like you look at it like after seeing Loki, and it's like you get this different perspective of it, which could be like, it's kind of like with certain.
It makes rewatches a lot more engaging.
Yeah, which I think is really cool. If they do that, it would be good on a more profound level, because if these shows can add that much to the MCU, not just what goes on in the future, but also what has already happened.
Yeah.
That like on like a whole other level would just be incredible, because it would completely elevate the MCU itself, which is already one of the best.
It's surprising how well they've kept up everything.
How incredible they've actually done it. It's like the best
like
interconnected universe.
If you told people after the first Thor movie that like this would happen, they would just not believe it.
Right, but like they've carefully set it up, and it looks like they're continuing to do so, which is like incredible. I think,
And like the whole villain setup's kind of interesting. I feel like it's not gonna end up being exactly like Loki as the villain,
right?
Because one of the cast is like Richard Grant, which he plays villains a lot. Like he was he was that one admiral from The Rise of Skywalker,
right? Yeah,
and it's like it kind of seems obvious that he'd be a villain role and would really contrast with Loki. So I feel like that would be the villain.
Yeah,
I don't know how they would do a Loki on Loki villain. If it would be like a Logan and X-24 situation, but
I'm not sure.
It could be cool, but I don't know how
it could be interesting. I think it was a cool ending with a good amount of suspense to get us excited for the rest. But like what like the villain actually is gonna be, and like even in this image you can kind of see in the background like what it's like. What they're actually gonna do with that and how they're gonna handle it with the whole Loki on Loki thing, or like who knows? Maybe they're just telling Loki that it's himself.
It also seems like they don't even know themselves, really.
Or like, yeah, and like it wouldn't even be certain that they know. Maybe like Owen Wilson is tricking him, or like Owen Wilson's character like doesn't Mobius. Maybe like he just isn't sure. Who knows what it is? But I think it's definitely pretty enthralling overall.
Yeah, and in the trailers it shows clear time travel stuff. Like there's like clear scenes where he's back in like Avengers timeline.
Right.
And there's shows like the Asgardian Throne and stuff. So I'm very interested in like how, like if this is gonna like go back to Asgard or, you know, the main timeline or anything.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how precise the actual attention to detail gets later on.
This is why I really would have liked to seen like a mini series about like Captain America when he returned the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, that I really want to see. Like,
especially him in Red Skull would be really cool.
Right. Because that was one of the things that like when
that's
I left,
the biggest thing fans had questions of, like,
right, when I left Endgame I was like, what were his adventures returning those, because then like he's just back and he had a whole life in between like those like 3 minutes in the movie, so it's like,
yeah, it wasn't even like firmly established if like he stayed in the main timeline or he went in an alternate timeline and had his life. So.
Right. There's a lot like up for interpretation there, which I think would be really interesting to delve into. And like, who knows, maybe like some of that will tie into this show. There's so much they could do with like setting up this whole multiverse storyline. There's so much that they could incorporate into Loki that could just like apply like outside to the rest of like the MCU. I just think it's really exciting. There's a lot of potential and it gets me hyped. Just overall, I'm like, yeah, I think it's going to be really awesome to see. I really hope that they can build upon this, because this got me really hyped. So
yeah, and we're gonna probably talk about each episode every week.
Right. Yeah, we'll probably
kind of talk about what happens next.
Yeah, we'll try to talk about each episode because it's only 6, and it's just really exciting, I think.
Yeah. What time would the show? What day would the show even end? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The July 14th. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think. I think I'll be gone that week, the finale.
Yeah, which is upsetting.
We'll have to do it the week after then.
Right. But either way, around mid-July. But there's just so much potential, and I'm very excited for the rest of the series.
Because when does Black Widow come? It comes out at the beginning of July. So
yeah,
this will still be going on.
July 9th, yeah. So we'll have to see if Black Widow ties into this at all. I don't really know what it will. I don't know what Black Widow's gonna be at all.
Black Widow seems much more like something that should have been years ago.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's gonna connect to stuff that's more happening later, because I think the Thunderbolts are supposed to be teased in that movie. So.
Which
is something like Zemo would be involved in and stuff, which is much more like Captain America, Falcon type of stuff.
Right.
This is much more like it's kind of like the thing they do every few years, where it's like, you know, they do this more experimental stuff, like with the Avengers, you know, team ups, and then they did Guardians, which was like space.
Right.
And, you know, Ant-Man, which was just kind of like, hey, let's make this dumb hero like a decent film. And then I don't know what they would. Like Doctor Strange, like exploring magic.
Right.
This is exploring like time travel and like time.
Right, and like the different like the branches.
And this is going to literally set up the multiverse stuff, which is like the next like phase of stuff that's going to be going on. Right. Along with whatever Earth centric stuff there is. Yeah. Because like there's a lot of films where we don't even know like how it's really going to connect everything. Like I don't know how, you know, the Marvels or like Ant-Man 3, or like the Hawkeye show is really going to connect to everything.
Right, like I don't really know how all of that's going to tie in together.
Like I know this will definitely connect to the next Spider-Man and Doctor Strange films.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Loki seems to be seems to be fundamental to the foundation of like all of that stuff.
My personal theory is that probably end the show Loki's going to mess some stuff hard. And like they literally talk about how the timeline's like heading into the red zone. Yeah. And then this will kind of lead into, you know, the multiverse and madness. You know, in the Spider-Man 3, how all the Spider-Mans are together. Right, probably something like that.
I do think that this is like, that Loki's going to be like...
He's going to do mischievous stuff.
Right, is going to be important
for setting up all that stuff. Which will be very cool to see at a certain point. Just see him like go all out. Like there's even that footage of like him as like President Loki on like a post-apocalyptic Earth, which was like the last image we had up here.
Right, yeah.
Which is like, I don't even know how that's going to play in. Because they had that D.B. Cooper stuff, which I don't know a lot about personally. I know it's like a real life thing, and like they just say Loki did it, which would make sense for this universe. Right. And like the whole explanation was like he had like a bet, which is kind of funny. But like I never really thought about that type of stuff before.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know much about that story like in real life. Right. I know it's like a thing, but yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
Really good acting all around, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
really good effects. Like, there's pretty much nothing wrong with how the show's being presented.
Right, everything so far has been impressive. It visually has looked really interesting. I like the sets that they use, and the shots were very well done. I really like I said, Hiddleston's performance, Wilson's performance, and then even like some of the like more side characters. I think did a great job elevating.
That one guy he was like interacting with when he was trying to steal the Tesseract was pretty. He was funny. He looks familiar. I don't know what I know him from.
Yeah, I definitely recognize him, but I don't know what he's been in. So, I mean,
I'm very interested in this organization that they're setting up.
Right. The TVA is very fun because there's so much that they could do with that, and it looks so interesting. And
it's being much more well explored than like say like the quantum realm, which has just kind of been a background thing.
Right. Yeah. And it looks like they're
even Doctor Strange hasn't really like shown that much.
Yeah.
They definitely are going to, but like. With WandaVision and stuff, and then obviously Doctor Strange too.
I'm excited to see how they expand upon these additions to the whole universe.
Yeah, but like compared to like the other pilots, like WandaVision, it didn't like necessarily get me into the show. It was more just because I wanted to know what was going on, and like the show was deliberately not telling you.
Right.
And Falcon Winter Soldier was a very linear like storyline that was very set in like the world already of Earth.
Yeah,
and explore a lot of issues like that could relate to us. But this is like very like investigative kind of like mystery, very like out there.
Right.
And, this is like set in like its own thing too.
It's definitely the
TVA is almost like set outside of time, which is weird because they control time.
Right. Like he kept saying that time was like weird in the TVA.
Like, Loki even said, "I've never heard of you people before."
Yeah. Which is like kind of crazy because like the whole point of like Loki is that he is a god and like
he's been around for like Thor said he was like 1,500 years old.
Right.
Which you gotta assume Loki's around the same age.
Yeah.
So
close to.
Yeah.
Which is just, I just think that I mean it's crazy.
Not even to mention that literally in a few months they're also gonna be like bringing in the Eternals.
Right, which the Eternals has like I don't know what that's gonna be at all, but like there's a lot of crazy stuff that could come from that.
Yeah, the biggest thing with that movie is gonna be figuring out like where have they been this whole time and like why have they done absolutely nothing.
Yeah, like what, like how do they get set up? Because there's no way that they could have been like not involved with all the stuff that's been happening
until now.
Like there has to be some type of in the world.
Speaking of time, this could be like a film where they introduce Kang.
That's true.
He's gonna be in Ant-Man 3, like it's confirmed.
Yeah.
Which is weird that that's the villain of Ant-Man.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me personally.
Because compared to those villains in the Ant-Man films, which are incredibly weak.
Right.
But yeah. But I don't know if we have any more to say about the pilot.
Yeah,
we were going to talk about A Quiet Place 2, but we didn't end up seeing it. So.
Yeah, we didn't get around to seeing A Quiet Place Part 2. But
even The Conjuring 3. I didn't see that either.
Right, I've seen A Quiet Place 2 has gotten overall really positive reviews, and the third Conjuring has gotten mostly mixed. I think like leaning toward negative reviews, but who knows? Maybe we'll see those before next week. I'm not sure, but
I'll definitely see A Quiet Place 2 at some point because it sounds like it's genuinely really good.
Right. I'm excited to see how it is because sequels are always tough, so I'm excited to see how it's done. And yeah.
I guess there's a spin-off Quiet Place film coming out in 2023, but isn't a third movie. I don't know.
It's always weird what people try to do, happens with like franchises or what goes on with all that.
But back to Loki, I'm very interested in where the show's gonna go and like what will even be the future of this character because they're gonna introduce like different versions of Loki. Like I think it's confirmed that there's gonna be a lady Loki.
Right.
So I don't know like where this is gonna like if Tom Hiddleston's even because I know like he was kind of ready to be done after Endgame.
Right.
And he didn't really know he was gonna have a show until like he filmed Endgame.
Right.
Because he thought like Infinity War was a pretty solid death for him, and he's just gonna be able to move on to whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then this like show came up, and he like, obviously like with how this first episode is running itself, it's definitely like, there's no way like you wouldn't want to do this.
Right.
There's like a lot of good new acting.
I think it reignited passion for him because it's like a project that's actually based around him, based around Loki, and also like it can has so much potential to be something incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how much else we have to say about the pilot.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any other any extra thoughts?
Yeah, one second. But yeah, it was really good. A lot of great stuff. Definitely recommend it. if you can watch it. Apparently, it's gonna be really important for the future.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think I would definitely recommend it to MCU fans because I think it's gonna be important, and also it's just straight up entertaining. So.
Yeah, but really solid, really good setup.
Yeah, really solid setup.
Definitely hope. I don't really want more setup because you only have 6 episodes. So I really want to get like more into the meat of the story.
I want to see the true meat and expansion that goes on forward. So
I was really the main thing I wanted to see in this episode is Loki kind of react to his whole life, and like in this new situation he's in.
Right, which is always a fun concept, like how people actually react.
There's always that like kind of like thing that people always like. What if you could like watch your whole life and like know how you die and like everything you go through, and then like what would you do after that? Right.
And another cool thing about it is that like this is like a Loki that didn't get all the development we talked about from after the Avengers, but like he sees like how things that shook out, so he doesn't get that development, but he gets some of the effects of it without the development itself. So it's interesting to see like how like the character is gonna like evolve from there. So.
Yeah, it was just like it sticks in your head so much that I never knew I wanted to see like Loki react to his neck snapping.
Yeah,
like, it's just such a dark but very like almost like cathartic thing to see.
Right, I agree with that completely because it's not something that I ever like envisioned.
And it adds more to that scene.
Right, it adds so much to it, and like Hiddleston's performance adds to it, and everything about it. And even afterward, when like he's talking to Mobius, and like the way like his entire demeanor has changed,
and it keeps Thanos' presence kind of more felt.
Right, Thanos is already one of the best written villains of all time, so it like helps with that so much. So,
but yeah, that's probably about it.
That's all I've got to say. Be sure to leave your comments on your thoughts on the pilot episode of Loki.
Subscribe.
Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, tell you make sure you're notified of every AmityCast, and
merch.
Drop a like if you liked, drop a dislike if you didn't like. I don't know.
Yeah, just leave any thoughts you have down below.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
But yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good one.